it's the blood composition that controls the genes. Who or what controls the chemistry of the blood? I go, the brain controls the chemistry of the blood. And the answer is whatever picture you have in your mind. So if I have a picture of love in my mind, I release wonderful chemistry into the blood, dopamine, pleasure. That's why we always fall in love. It feels so good. And most importantly, when you're in love, you release what is called growth hormone. So I say, so what's the relevance of the chemical cocktail derived from love? And the answer is vital, very vital. Fear causes stress chemistry. Stress chemistry shuts down growth. You can come with a normal gene, but with a picture that's skewed, you can alter the readout of the gene and make cancer. 90% of cancer is not even genetically connected in the family. All right. Let's go back to understanding how come we're in a problem today in regard to, we feel like we're victims of our heredity. I go, what does that mean? I say, well, we've been programmed that the genes provide the character of our life. And I say, well, as far as you know, did you pick the genes that you have? If you don't like the character, can you change the genes? No. And then we tell you the genes turn on and off by themselves, which then all of a sudden really makes you a victim of your heredity. Oh my God, there's cancer running in my family, heart disease, or diabetes. And then what does a person take home with that message and says, oh my God, I got the gene. And then their visualization process sees them like, I'm going to have this problem. Well, of course, that's what I was teaching in medical school for years. And then I was back, I hate to say this because, yes, I'm that old. Back in the 60s, I was growing what are called stem cells in tissue culture. And stem cells are embryonic cells. Mm-hmm. And all of us have stem cells. If you're out there and listening to this program, you have stem cells for a very important reason. A body is not a single entity. It's made out of 50 trillion cells, but every day we lose hundreds of billions. I mean, these are numbers that are, it's easy to say 100 billion. I say, start to count to 100 billion. It'll take you a year or two to get there. And I go, so hundreds of billions of cells die every day. That's natural. The issue is, well, how long can you live if hundreds of billions are dying every day? And the answer is, well, every day we make new hundreds of billions of cells. And I say, from where? And I say, stem cells. And I say, what are they? Embryonic cells. Why don't I call them embryonic cells? Well, after you were born, you're no longer the embryo. We changed the name. Same cell, though. So I have these multipotential cells. I put one cell in a petri dish by itself, and it divides every 10 or 12 hours. So first there's 1, and then 2, 4, 8, 16, doubling. At the end of a week, 30,000 cells in the petri dish. Most important point, they all came from the same parent. So I have 30,000 genetically identical cells. I split them into 3 petri dishes. And so 10,000 in each, but all dishes genetically identical. And I then grow cells in what is called culture medium. This is the secret. I said, what is culture medium? I said, it's a laboratory version of blood. Cells grow in blood. And I go, okay, so when I grow human cells, I say, what's human blood made out of? And I make culture medium in a lab. But since I make culture medium, I can change some of the composition. So I make 3 different versions of culture medium, but 3 plates of identically genetic cells. And in culture medium A, environment A, the cells form muscle. In another dish, genetically identical cells, but a different environment, B, different culture medium, they form bone. And in a third petri dish, again, genetically identical cells, but different environment, the cells form fat cells. So I say, well, what controls the fate of the cells? The answer is they were all genetically identical. The only thing that was different was the chemistry of the culture medium. And all of a sudden, this leads to a whole new science. Genetics is the science of genes control a disease or genes control a character. Mm-hmm. This new science, and this is really critical, is called epigenetics. And I say, well, what is epi? Well, epi means above. So we call skin epidermis, which means above the dermis. That's where the skin is. So I say, what is epigenetic control? That means control above the genes. I go, what do you mean? Genes are blueprints. They're blueprints to make the proteins of the body, 100,000 different, like Lego parts, 100,000 different pieces. You assemble some, it's a muscle cell. You take some of those proteins, assemble it, it's a brain cell. So I have 100,000 different proteins, okay? And the genes are blueprints. And I say, well, what's the relevance? And simple point is this: you go into an architect's office and she's working on a blueprint. Ask her, hey, you're off. And she'll look at you and go, it's a blueprint. There's no on and off. It's a blueprint. I go, precisely. Genes are blueprints. They cannot turn on and off. But an architect can read the blueprints and adjust the blueprints. And I go, well, what's the architect that controls my genes? Well, here's the story, and we'll connect it very quickly, and that is this. I said I was putting blood, equivalent in a dish called culture medium and growing the cells. And the culture medium composition changed the fate of the cells. And then I go, when you look in the mirror and see yourself, I go, well, that's an illusion of a single entity, because each of us is made out of about 50 trillion cells. We are, by definition, not a single entity. We are a community of 50 trillion cells. Those are the living entities. Well, inside under your skin, you have the original culture medium, blood. The blood chemistry controlled the fate of the cells. I go, yeah, it does in a plastic dish. But I say, it does the same thing in the skin cover dish. So all of a sudden, now I say, is it your genes that control your life? And I go, no, it's the blood composition that controls the genes. Now we take it, there's two steps. Now, one step is, well, then who or what controls the chemistry of the blood? I go, the brain controls the chemistry of the blood. Mm-hmm. And then comes the big one. So what chemistry should the brain be putting into the blood? And the answer is, whatever picture you have in your mind, the brain will translate that into complementary chemistry and then release it in the blood. And then your cells will conform to the picture in your mind. Picture of health, cool. Picture of fear, disease, not so cool. But the point about it was what? The genes had no decision making in this. It has to do with what are you thinking? Consciousness is changing the chemistry, and the chemistry complements the consciousness. So if I have a picture of love in my mind, I release wonderful chemistry into the blood. Dopamine, pleasure. That's why we always fall in love. It feels so good. I say, what else? Oxytocin. That bonds you to the loved one. And I say, what else? Vasopressin, a chemical, a hormone that makes you more attractive so that your partner stays with you longer. And most importantly, when you're in love, you release what is called growth hormone. And growth hormone does exactly what it says. So I say, so what's the relevance of the chemical cocktail derived from love? And the answer is vital, very vital life. People in love glow. They're healthy. They're vital. They're vibrant. I go, what a coincidence. I say, no, it's the chemistry in the blood that is controlling the genetics and the behavior. I say, well, wait. So if I have a picture of fear, I say, do I release love chemistry? I go, no. Fear has its own chemistry, stress hormones and things that regulate the immune system. So I say, so what? The picture I'm holding changes into chemistry. The chemistry then controls the genetics and the behavior. Fear causes stress chemistry. Stress chemistry shuts down growth. Let me give a reason why. The biggest issue on this planet, everyone says, where's all the illness coming from? Got healthcare crisis everywhere. I go, not from the genes. Less than 1% of disease is even connected to genes. Crazy. Well, then all of a sudden, so where the hell's all the disease coming from? I go, the consciousness of the individual is selecting the genes, and as an architect can alter the readout of the genes. You can come with a normal gene, but with a picture that's skewed, you can alter the readout of the gene and make cancer. 90% of cancer is not even genetically connected in the family.
最後までご視聴ありがとうございました。そして、これは来年に向けての私のね、思惑なんですけれども、医療従事者の方、あるいは病気が治ったさんとか、代替医療をやっていらっしゃる方でも面白いかなと思うんですけども、あなたの考える病気のたった一つの原因っていうのを、こちらの YouTube のライブにね、いらして熱く語っていただける方、ぜひお待ちしております。もしそうした方いらっしゃいましたら、よろしければご連絡くださいませ。それでは、この後も素敵なお時間をお過ごしくださいませ。バイバイ。またね。